Oh, that's
some coffee day, isn't it?
18. 18. I'm not
sure.
What's about? Yeah. Sanje, Judan, Soja, Sonan, Danjo, Daniel, Soja, Sonan, Sanje, Sanje, Janjo, Bado, Soja, Daje, Sonanje, Jola, Sanje, Sanje, Judan, Sonala, Janjo, Daje, Jola, Sanje, Jobara, Dayantan, Gade, Para, Songate, Body, Swaha, Dayantan, Para, Songate, Body, Dayantan, Gade, Body, Ola Sota, Simja Tamjega to the Topjalana Machiba, Sanjay, Komar, and Bocha, Chinaja, Topacha. And it teacher the Ember Chanjo Samba Labjana, Sishido, Topaja, Cheat the teacher the Ember Chanjo Samba Labja, Trisha, the Nyamsalango, Lawala, Shingo, Shimmer, Tuvala, Tuju, Manoa, to go to Gosa Baba, and guess it was like 7 Chinju and the Trisha Chibin, some chat.
So we begin again by setting our motivation, the motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit sentient beings. Knowing that to attain that state, I must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. And to perfect those trainings in turn, I must have a very good understanding of what they are. I gain this understanding by relying upon a non-mistaken presentation. And such it is that I am here this morning to listen to a teaching from the King of Mind training texts known as the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by the great master Shantideva.
What did Takanja, what did the school and then Takanja Nam Junu Nation, so she just said that we do and Dungan Nankala and then more and get Jaza Lama Yimba, Naba Tabjala Tujichibutaba and Toba Shaja to set up.
And likewise, as we normally do, we begin by setting up the merit field in the space in front, which is in fact or in reality our own root guru, but in the aspect of the Guru Manindra Shakyamuni Buddha.
Because I said about Tomba Shaja Tobate and Chikaso Shaji Chani, yes, and Yamshaka, Tuzeko, Lusanova, Kula Chugu, Mumika, Tochin, so much, but also Bakura and Dungan Nankale, and Chikaso de Takachi, show you something what in the Kombacha.
And that the figure of the Buddha in front is one face, two hands, with the right hand in the earth-touching mudra, and the left hand, the meditative equipoise position, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. And the body of the Buddha is in the nature of clear light.
Rangi Tagoduya, and the Dinchever marking city Pamane, Jever, Dinchever marking Simjataja, Masama Meba, you, subject that city Pama, Stingama, that Pama Meba Rangi, and Jigga Pameg Dewa Yube, Simje, that time marking Simjet that Masama Meba, you, some to do Simjet, Masama Meba, you, some Komacha.
And so that in the space all around us are all kinds, mother sentient beings, from our parents in this life, going back to our parents in the previous life, to the one previous to that, going back to, in fact, all of the, to beginningless time. So what we're looking at is a number including all the beings of all the 6 realms of existence without exception.
What in the Takanja Rangaduna said the Lama Tuba Omboti and Chivo Omgawa, Jamba Armavo, Tuga Hong, the Yigasum just set up, Tuga Honle, and we said part of Meva Trainer, and Shinganjara never Takanja Ishiba on that Java Chantan, Ishibate, and Lama Tuba number Chantan, only Ongo, Chulama just never, and we give a weekend. What did you come?
And bringing our focus back to the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha in front, we can see that he is marked by the 3 syllables of white Om at the crown, a red at the throat, and a blue hung at the heart center. From the hung at the heart center, countless rays of light emanate, going out into the pure realms and inviting back the wisdom beings and empowering deities. The wisdom beings dissolve into the central figure, and the empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, some of which overflows at the crown, spontaneously producing the figure of Akshobhya.
我这里是，我打的那个告诉的，让给三代的那么图标我们的，大于西吧，我说可能学呢，大概这我说工作这问题，上了马上去了，不过说吧可能，我打的那些，那等呢，大概告诉的，就告诉的，周边人家他也把这呢，他也嘛给什么叫他们家了，你给明白主要这边，你这个他那做可能吧，周边人家那做我出这个去，感谢。给明白这呢，你告诉的，对，告诉周边人家感谢组队，感谢爬针的，但边这个手这个告诉的这个写上嘛，说那这了啥不手这拿了约定个去，我的这个恐怕些，
And our visualization of the figure in front is a figure that is live. It's not simply like a representation like a statue, but a live figure. Very much in action. In fact, we see this constant emanation of different emanations of the Buddha moving out from the heart center of the Buddha to ripen beings who have not yet been ripened, to ripen further those that have been ripened, and using a very broad, how to say, means of being able to do that, a wide variety of means to be able to effectively benefit others, and then returning back as well. So there's this constant coming and going in our very busy kind of situation in the space in front.
我真的是感觉到这个。现在看不到没办法，那做把人把人上，俺那看不到没办法推别个，俺那就把那做把真的，就把那做把真的，甚至个对人节。俺甚至，他甚至个对人节上呢，专门样感谢做就把做多，感谢怕做这个，我打的这个可是这个做的这边人家把那错不去，是吧？他甚至刚了刚对给俺刚了刚对给俺这边人把那错不去，我的这个我把写过了，我的这。
So these emanations that are emanating from the Buddha that we are visualizing are kind of a myriad in both number and in form and in situation, because they are addressing the wide variety of disposition and kind of situation that sentient beings are in. And so they are emanating in accordance with the benefit that they are going to bestow on the beings with those dispositions. And so this is kind of very, it's very particular, very busy, and very profound.
我的过不是，我这，俺那让给他个要嘛，给甚至他们在他们讲，俺那人做东岸那些把干伊了，那么俺老子那现在呢，俺那那么就有个，那么特别我们古松土个原来这样土个，俺得了当然对吧，一起个对吧，我这个对吧，俺老子跟着给吧呢，俺嘛给他有嘛给甚至他这个听的是给的个就过不是，
And likewise with all of the kind mother sentient beings all around us, and though they are residents of the 6 realms of existence, they are able to cognize this situation with a human intelligence, and therefore, like us, they, in recalling the wonderful qualities of the enlightened body, speech, and mind, generate tremendous faith, pure faith, faith of conviction, and manifest faith. And that in the same way as we do, are experiencing this kind of generation of faith like us.
我的是，俺那大概那些个让的晒的那么特别红不当，俺那光跟说，俺那个啥的个吧，他一边嘛跟甚至他家三节个嘛特别吃的光面个，俺那甚至在他家讲，有的那就把对上要买这个去，买把的啥买的，有的店里中国们都找他买这个去，我的是恐怕些。
And likewise, the Guru Buddha that we are focusing on. Ourselves as the ones meditating this way, and all the sentient beings that we are visualizing are all empty of any objective existence, even at the atomical level. Does that mean that they are non-existent? No, they do exist. They exist independence.
我的是公巴些，我的人我的公巴些，啊，但公巴些讲呢，那什么讲个东北了拉出来的呢？那人家给，啊，那东巴特别我不给，那什么讲的土家啷了，我把说话三节吧。我那时候到土家，我那时候到啷了，我那时候我把说话三节吧，第一，啊，原点准备可能单位对吧，一这个对吧，我这个对吧来说，我这个是公巴些讲，
So we really generate and intensify this pure faith, faith of conviction and manifest faith by recalling that the Buddha developed the mind of enlightenment, trained on the path, and generated that full and complete enlightenment. And that he generated that mind of enlightenment with us in mind, with all the benefit of all sentient beings in mind. He trained on the path again with us in mind and all sentient beings, and manifested full and complete enlightenment for our sake. And so this really generates this sense of really pure faith, manifest faith, and faith of conviction in us.
什么叫了没别人家当，那对那些的那么特别红不了没别人当外的一这个对吧？我这个对吧？说不，这告诉了这个真都说了真的，不这个对大家，这个对大家永远我的来去恐怕些。
So this sense of having contemplated all the suffering of all the kind mother sentient beings around us, giving rise to a sense of compassion in us, and then as explained that we have this faith in the Buddha. And so in reflecting on these in turn, it's like one feeds the other so that both become stronger and more intense.
我的是，我的是把这个他，我的是我的这个说的这个点都那些真的，点都那些真的，他这个白告诉的告诉的告诉的他这个说对大家的点不当，啊他这个可是啥不去用那个，我的是恐怕些真的，我恐怕些，啊那等呢，甚至。他也嘛跟他对那些对吧？甚至在他讲，按这个电话的对吧？就在这吧，在那节目了，电话数据，电话纠结，电话打个这个，在那真的吧？那么特别我们经过了，是恐怕些，按他也嘛跟甚至他讲，东岸就在这吧，在那节目了，电话纠结，电话数据，按这吧打个这个，在那真的吧？那么特别我们经过了，是东岸没电话的民间的节目了，民间我纠结，民间我数据。民间我打个这个，在那真的吧？那么特别我们经过了，是个恐怕些。他今天我那可能用完了，他你的恰当的阶段，那他永远可能没了。他你的恰当的这个大牛的那把去，马中的他们都，你的恰当这个大牛的那基本上那把纠结，那把是那把大个这个对他真的吧，那么特别我们经过了都是恐怕些，
And so this alternate reflection on compassion and then with faith. It's like that the two mindsets are in competition to increase the quality of what we are reflecting on and the stability and intensity of those two mindsets. And then we think how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. May this be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. Oh, Guru Deity, please bless me to make this so. And how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May this be the case. I will see to it, O Guru Deity, please bless me to make it so. How wonderful if all sentient beings had the happiness that knows no suffering and the excellent bliss of liberation. May it be the case. I will see to it, O Guru Deity, please bless me to make it so. And so we have these beautiful, noble reflections. But of course, we are all quite pointless if we maintain this mental attitude of discrimination, this holding some close and others distant, attachment and aversion, and so on. And so we must really, as a foundation, base all of these four immeasurable thoughts on the thought of equanimity. How wonderful if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger, that hold some close and others distant. May this be the case. I will see to it that it is the case, O Guru Deity. Please bless me to make this so.
哦，但是这个什定呢？俺那边这个可说的，他的那上恐怕写完了，但呢，俺那拉玛图标我们就贵呢，俺拉玛图标我们图干呢，原先八都买不出呢，俺那这可说的，原先那个八都买不出呢，原先搞不写起话去，俺那让那个他那什么的，他们结果呢，马修完了，但呢。아니 지금 토마메 되고 개바도야 아니 지금 가서래 세메시가 또바 개발라 바도 주제가 되고 되고 나니니 마도연 쳐서 삼사 공부하셔 나니니 마도연 쳐서 공부하셔 어디서 아니 되네 왜서 뭐 도저 세부 시에쳐가지고 밤에 아니 가서대다 되게 세메시가 또바 개발자 라셨으면 이렇게 네바 개발자 샤소 쓰서 어디로 공부하셔
And so we really try to feel this deep down, the essence of the four immeasurables like this. And as a result of that, we feel that there is a response from the Buddha in front. And the Buddha sends out these countless rays of light, 5 colors, and with the white light predominant at the outset, which has the purpose of purification. And so as it dissolves into ourselves, into the crown of ourselves and all the sentient beings all around us, it purifies all obscurations and negativities in general since beginning of time, but particularly those obstacles to our being able to generate the 4 immeasurable thoughts to the point of a realization. And following that, the nectar lights pulse again, and this time with the golden yellow light predominant. And this kind of endows us all with that potential to really fulfill that purpose of gaining an appreciation of the 4 immeasurables to the point of realization, so that we embody those noble aspects.
我的讲呢，他刚才这那么图标公布，我的讲，然后他等的有没有影响？他等的这个说的，什么叫他们这个，这个对，这个说的，他起码就做完了3节恐怕嘛，到了他们多看不到没办法，那说吧辛苦多，我他等的应对3节恐怕做完了，讲究个什么？他讲究是嘛叫他讲究个什么？拉不了马兰他们不的，他等的讲究是拉不了，讲究个什么个？做完了拉不够多。 또라 다들 임바 인자 아니 된데게 줘발라 라베다 슝게부터 보때 전주고 슝게 제시 준비 니게서 라마토베 뭐 검시베 간다 미유 심제 탐제 산제 고마토베 치도 디치도 계속 줘발라고 디치도 계속 줘베 슝 아니 라 럽준 지금 요서서 어디로 공부시
And so that and also we need to then really, in order to fulfill the purpose of all sentient beings, we need to attain that state of enlightenment, to emulate the state of the Guru Maninja that we are visualizing in front, and realizing, that in order at that point we have this wide, limitless variety of means of being able to do that, to really answer the call and to really be able to specifically help the wide variety of sentient beings and the wide variety of dispositions out there. In order to do that, we need to, of course, perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. And to actually start that, we need to generate the mind of enlightenment. And so it is with this motivation, now really intensively focused, that we are here today to listen to just how to do that, how to generate that mind of enlightenment based on the king of mind training texts, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, as composed by the great master Shantideva. Gyatang Junju Tamba, Niba Shenla Madeba La Sobala, Nyongmongi Gegi, Rangi Madeba La Yang, so Soba, sorry.
다 니바 셴 니바 셴라 마데바 라 쇠나 녀모 이케데랑 마데바레 쇠리파니사 자왈레 마데 셴라 라레페 미네마와 치미스스
So we arrived at a second subheading, which states that if we can have patience when a lack of confidence is displayed towards others, then we should also have patience when that same lack of confidence or lack of faith is expressed in us, because it arises from mental affliction.
Diribeta Made Shella Ralebe Deva Mela Kesuna Inselwa because Nyomo Kela Ralebe Minema Wachimiso Tigdis Made Shella Ralebe Made Shella Ralebe Deva Meva Kesuna Nyomo Kebe Nyomo Gasa Nyomo Kela Ralebe Minema Wachimiso what that's Dirsha. See the
Romason.
Oh, yeah.
So the verse that we're looking at is the verse number 63, which states, "If I can patiently accept this lack of confidence because it is related to someone else, then why am I not patient with unpleasant words about myself, since they are related to the arisal of disturbing conceptions?"
Shen la madeba asa shen la madeba miyu kansa shen la ralebe kansa shen la deba meba la kyo je mito wa sona wana kyo nyomu bala kyo asa nyomu bala ralebe rani la minyemba mawa dela ya semgyo chide miswe de soba rikso sheba wacha.
So it states here, yes, that this lack of faith in others, that's the kind of object that we are focusing on, that is the kind of like related to another, and so we have patience with regard to that. We kind of then have forbearance with regard to that, and so we're saying then why, when it's based on or if it's due to the condition of mental affliction or disturbing conceptions, why, when unpleasant words are directed towards us, are we not also patient? We ought to be patient.
Deva meba le kyesuna Deva meba le kyesuna minima wa chimisu ta kanje re ta rangi pa gyunju che ta ani jiga duksha la ye ta misu ba che de ko ji kaso de teso meba de jiga yor ba ta ngune chana dile ta jiga meba de ta gu yor ba ta de ta gu yor ba ta wa de sungu yesare ro
Younger than
당가졌다 마데 샬라 라리버스로 다 가서 샬라 마데바 미유 가서 마데바서 다 가서 생기 제단데다 마데바서도 다 가서 어 지단데 어디 야보리야 상자 로라 마자와 전에다 되게 교연제 통화도 아니 마데바 연구여라 마키바 연구여라 왔다 아니 딜라데는 먼저 견제 지고 여봐 다디 제바 나시 전에 다 랑게 샬라 견제 지에 딜레 뭐 상으로 땅고로 와 어단데 되게 매바자 상으로 땅고 여봐다 그러와 디아 저 수고구도 와. 디서는 아니 거기 디에 마티바 임바디 셰고구도 와. 좋아. 셰고구도 와. 뭐다 내가 디 쓰고 있어요.
So this verse is really looking into the context of sort of the results of criticism. So, for example, criticism directed at others, resulting in a loss of confidence in others. That if we can have patience with regard to that, because it's not affecting us, you know, we don't get upset about something like that. But it's the same kind of deal, because that criticism arises from mental affliction, and so when that same kind of criticism is directed towards us, we are often upset by it, we are disturbed by it, but the reasoning is that if you can tolerate it when it's directed at somebody else, then you should also be able to tolerate it when it is directed towards yourself, since it is still that which arises from the condition of mental affliction.
다 소소 녀몽 깨고 여봐 인사 녀몽 깨고 인사 거 타매 봤잖아 다 람도고도 문제는 수요고고도 수요고도 파말 독자 말랍잖아 봐 수요고도 파줘다 랍쇼도도 되다 인다면 삼자 랍고 쇼도고도 다들 가서도 녀몽고도 제가 인사 어다도 못고도 파줘들 카요 말 이제 거 녀몽고도 좋아 인사 그런 답시면은 제발에 삼사지 못고도 다 랑게 때 파두자려다 당가 녀몽고도 좋아해 삼사지 못고 다 디 온거 연구 열봐. 다 대자 파조가 두자 라외데 녀몽거도 주는 연구를 했었는데 녀몽게 발라 랄레베서 녀몽게 온게 중앙 녀몽라 때는 연구 열봐 인사 안돼 뭐트 그럴 수 있어요. 그래도
And so it's really saying here, the heart of this is to kind of recognize that mental affliction is at play in both scenarios. And once you react to the mental affliction, in other words, you fall under the influence of it, you've lost. So game over. And so it's really saying that, you know, if you have that sort of attitude towards when others are criticized and not reacting to it, then you don't have a right to react to it when you yourself are criticized, because if you do, you've fallen into the trap of mental affliction. And so it's kind of saying here to recognize the bigger picture, recognize what's going on, and so that you can see when mental affliction is in play, and to not fall into that trap.
다 되네 임자들 마데샬라 랄레베 대바 메라 쳬 스나사다 다 가서다 녀모 깨라 랄레베스다 가서다 다콜 녀모고 온게 저거 임바스 녀모라 때는 연구여서 미냐모아죠 다 되네 임바스 녀모게 다 온도 저다 가사 콜라 라마 메바차 녀모고 온도 좋아 인사미 다 되네 임바인자 아니 그 미냐마와라 갈tel 쇠도마 지미 쇠데 소고 그래서 뭐였어 어때도
Yeah, so that then you say, why am I not patient with unpleasant words about myself, since they are related to the arisal of disturbing conceptions? So it's isolating the disturbing conceptions here, are mental affliction, same thing as the kind of fulcrum around which these points turn. And if you fall under the influence of that, then you've lost. So it's recognizing what's going on, not allowing the mental affliction to overcome your mindset.
다들 그 중전 삼로 마다는 용게절보다 그 중전 삼로 땅와 임바이나 오다 디 녀모절 녀모 계속나 라와 요마리아 삼사고 오다 가제 지금 땅 거기서 봉사대 다 거기서대 녀모기 상황도 좋아 인사들 다들 지금 그 니제 유지 레고도 어때 다 중전 삼로 마다는 용도 거지 말와 중전 삼로 땅도 거지 어때
And so it's really that point of reasoning here, using the reasoning to reach that sense of compassion, in fact, because it's kind of like through reasoning that, oh, this is the mental affliction at play here. Once I kind of let the mental affliction have its way, I lose power, I lose agency over what is really going on. And that means that I must not do that. If I don't allow the mental affliction to take control here, then it actually leads to my being able to view the situation as an object of compassion. It's in the realm of compassion then.
그래서 니반 다게서 니반 다게 셰라 니바 제발라 초아가발라 니자 루아 소바 녀바 때문에 소바 가바 녀바 제발라 지미냐베 소바 가바 그래서 출랑 녀벌 제베 출랑 녀벌 세베 소바 가바다 그래서 녀바 제발라 지미냐베 소바 가바 오서 다 당보들라 그래서 출랑 녀벌 세베 소바 가바들라 니잖아 다 구수 소라 네바 제발라 초미리바 좀 된다 가바 니자 출랑 녀벌 세베 소바 가 들베 메소바 안에 가서 네바 제발라 지면녀베 소바 가바 오절 어들시
So the second point here is through when the wrong is done to our kind of friends and those close to us, putting a stop to a reaction of anger. So it's kind of really preventing anger from arising when wrong is done to those who are close to us. This has 2 points. two subsections. That is, putting a stop to that anger through the patience of finding conviction in the Dharma. And secondly, putting a stop to that anger through the patience of not returning harm for harm. And so with regard to the first of these, there are two further subheadings. That is, when the body, etc., is harmed, anger is incorrect as a response, than the reasoning behind that. And secondly, similarly, when our friends and close and spiritual teachers and so on are harmed, it is appropriate to apply patience.
Tata ganjeta tanda tangwotala ni chenda kusu la nyoba chewala chwa miribu jumsencha. Jeshendo shela nyoba chewala, kiwe shin nyoba chewala chwa miri. Kasa nyoba la soba chewala, soba la kasa nyoba chewala soriba wocha. Tangbo ni tangbo del takacha kusu sola nyoba chewala chwa miribu jumsente la zawale kusu cheden tamcho la kelshing jigbal jeba yang dage shedang miri de sanje sola nömi ngacha.
And so the first of these, when the body, etc., is harmed, anger is incorrect, and the reasoning behind that. Verse number 64 looks at that. Should others talk badly of or even destroy holy images, reliquaries, and the sacred Dharma, it is improper for me to resent it, for the Buddhas can never be harmed.
가서 담배 쳐서 나기 켈신 견줘봐다 견줘봐 아니 저 르기 직벌 제봐 르기 직벌 제발라 다게 세다자와 미리스 다가제 오다 델레 녀바 제발라다 지금 뇌제도 쓰고면도서 오다 델레 마셔 요 말에 산제게 아니 구소다 최대 로다 최대다 담배 쳐라서 나기 켈신 견줘봐다 나케 온게 다가 나켈 젠네 다가서 쳐를 견줘봐 아니 단데 르기 직벌 제봐 다가서 델레게 그래서 구소 산제 구상마다 델레게 아니 배자다 델레 직벌 제봐라 직벌 제발라야 다지 세단 자와 미리 돼서 세단의 콘르자 구구 말에 산제 솔을 녀봐 요말 다디 가서는 가라 쪽에 디가솔에 다가서 가서 첩전의 샤워를 꾸디 집어지고 쇠 샤워와 구 산제 군다다 되죠 가서 아트스케 쇠셔 저르면도 산제 문에도 말봐 이내 딱 가라두고 딜라 지가서다 람네제 직전에 산제 산제 제수 좀 봐. 뒤통원에는 산제 제수 라야다. 아니 저기 와다 저기 배자게 다 대변도 딜라되는 아니 송 산제가 송게 도다들 고투야다. 딜레제도면도 문에 단내도 산제가 송데 산제가 규기 뒤바래. 아니 산제가 꾸저 산제가 규기 뒤바래도 셔바지가 촐라당 매버서야 그게 요 말봐. 어때 대수고 요래. 안데네 인사 네 요말에 콘도사고 말했어. 근데 콘도사죠 살라다 되게 레녀바 삽쳐 뭐 사고여서 되는 니지게 유레스 뭐도 손.
And so here is referring to when the bodies of the Buddha are and stupas and the sacred Dharma itself, where it is reviled, or criticized, or even destroyed. Here is saying that is no place for resentment or anger or hatred on your part, because the triple gem, the bodies and so on, the representations of the Buddha cannot be harmed, and that the bodies of the Buddha, in other words, the stupas and statues and so on, these are all created by artists, and they're not the actual Buddha. And that the teachings as well Holy Dharma, these are representations of what's in the mind stream of the Buddha. So they cannot, in fact, be destroyed as long as they're within that mind stream. And therefore, in place of a hatred in a situation like that, one should understand that a great negativity is being enacted here. And therefore, for those who are reviling, criticizing, and destroying, they are an object of our compassion. That's the only mindset that should be present in a situation like that.
다들 산제 군자다 최대다 된데게 안지 리치게 매버 소바 다고 녀모 군내라는 매버 소바 이나야 산제다 아니 저 최대다 투기 최대 여자 산제가 투라 녀줘야 그게 요 말이 거기 리프레젠테이터가 돼 찹소로 전 알아주고 대바 유견소라 아니 대바 유견소 거 대배 때전에 아니 딜라때네 산제가 투기 진납주야 산제 구이 진납주야 산제가 송기 진납주야 돼 용되게 요래 용되게 요래만도 얘네 디 매버 주변에 산제구 매버 차주 산제가 투 매버 차주 산제가 송 매버 차주 가야 요 말이야 요 말과 요 말이야 다 디가 산제구 송도 산제 규규 되바 인사 고 매버 소야 요 말이야 매버 요 말이야 이래야 다 간사 되게 네버 랍치부 네버 삽치부 쉬고 사버로다 네버 삽치부 쉬고 사는 근데 이바 인사 다 가르치고서 디 이제 유레스
And so, of course, the representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, the body in the form of statues, the speech in the terms of the teachings themselves, and the mind in terms of the reliquaries or the stupas, are simply representations, and that they, are helpful to practitioners to recall the Buddha, to recall the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. And so they kind of serve the faith of the faithful. And so these are the uses of these particular buildings and constructions. But if they are destroyed, it's not that the Buddha's body, speech, and mind can be destroyed. That's not the case. We use these representations to access the blessing of the Buddha, the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, or whatever purpose we want it for, and that in their destruction, that blessing cannot be destroyed. Of course, it is a very harsh negativity to engage in the destruction of these items, and therefore, those who engage in that are an object of compassion.
동해 미디어바래 코테랑 제수요래 얘네야 몸바 마리베 원게 무티네 동해 그 규지 두고 요바 인사 아니 데라 다 닝제유 다고 그래서 다 닝제유 다고 그래서
And so the reasoning is that what's important is to really see that the person engaging in such destructive actions wants happiness and does not want suffering, just like we do. But they are ignorant with regard to the causes to bring about happiness and the causes to avoid in relation to suffering. And this has put them in a very difficult situation. And therefore, by our understanding of their accumulating such negativity, they become an object of compassion for us.
간사디 된데 제와데 랑게 녀모웨게 나라즈의 녀모웨게 아니 깬도 만져와 나라즈게 가서 닝제게 깬도 좋아 장 그러와 닝제게 깬도 좋아데 장주가 샘게에 깬도 좋아 or 잡아데 닝제게 깬도 좋아지 다 제거에 다 링게 자도 디 녀모 오게 자도 라녀 디 깬제나 라녀모 깨 잡아나다 아니 마티바와 다 라데 녀모 마게 받잖아 딜 닝제게
And so the point is here that, it's really pointing out two things. One is that in a situation as expressed in this verse, that we must avoid it becoming a condition for the arising of mental affliction in our mind, mental affliction of kind of hatred and resentment and so on towards that person. But what it should become is a condition for the arisal of compassion, the mind of enlightenment, loving kindness, etc. So it's very, very important. One, we are clear. If anger or resentment arises from our side towards that sort of action or behavior, that is completely incorrect. We have missed the opportunity, we've missed the point. But we must see what's going on as a condition that really inspires our compassion.
딜라 콘도 마사와 전에 아니 가솔레 다다데 가솔레 저거 어다 저 몽바 마리과 생게도 여와이나 디 온게다 레니바 삽좀 사기도 삼사 아니 미소바 께네 아니 저 몽바세 랑게 몽바세 신게 몽바세 돌아 탑치도나 다 간요중에 지에 아니 디가들 아니 저거 잡아다 니제 코메다 딜레 용구도 어때 공부시에도
So what's absolutely the most important is, of course, if one can prevent these actions towards representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind from being harmed, oh, that's best. But if harm is inevitable in this situation, then we must not see it as a condition that will give rise to anger on our part. But here we recognize that what is occurring on the basis of the kind of ignorance of really a sense of not knowing, of ignorance, and that we are in the process of really eradicating that ignorance in regards to ourselves. And so we must generate compassion. We must make a fervent aspirational prayers that not just our ignorance is eradicated, but the ignorance of all is eradicated. So that these sort of scenarios don't occur again.
That let's chat to Baina, that Kansa did a leg Yabasabarite, Rangi leg Gawasabe Kendo Josua, the Kapsaratoa.
So also we can see that from the terms of that person engaging in such activities, they of course are accumulating a negative karma. But we have been able to see that as a condition for the generation of compassion on our side.
아니 가이나 메나다 저거 나라도 다들 직전 디나라 통대다 유에티게 되건가 그 나라도 레가 온게 삭제심보다 나요 말이야. 근데 저거 삭제 그 최디게 돼 로아 삭제 그 최디게 돼 남신아 매바 차주로 와. 남신은 매바 차주로 다 다른 가사들이 이제 코란게 녀몽을 끊으라는다 매바서도 다 거기 매바 수업을 뒤에다 콜레냐 바사그르다 그 매바 소나 마서나 니마 좀 매바 차주로 와. 안 되게 되고 바시에서 와.
And of course, also we can keep in mind that in this world, in this reality, that all objects, including ourselves, are contaminated entities, and as such, they will disintegrate and go out of existence at some point. And so it's here. Just happens that this person, motivated by mental affliction, has engaged in that activity like prematurely and eradicated or destroyed an element of Buddha's body, speech, and mind. Therefore, they are an object of compassion. But the fact is that, regardless of how permanent anything looks, it is going to go out of existence because it's a contaminated entity in this reality.
Yeah. nga chi chi rema do nima chi meba cha ta chi bare ta meba cha de ta chi bare de yine da gansa de nyomo ko ne la ne ko meba so de kora le nya ba sa bare de yine so so de la de ne le ge wa tu ku ga chi to na ta du sha na di ke sa ro what is good.
And so, like, think, yes, of course, this representation of body, speech, and mind will certainly go out of existence at some point. It happens that this person, motivated by mental affliction, has done that now and generated negative karma. But I have been able to react and respond actually through reasoning and compassion, offering compassion in place there, due to the fact of really having gone through all this reasoning. And so that is a good thing. That is an important, that is the kind of upshot or the profit of this situation.
다 니바 대신도서 셰란 너바 잡아라 소르바니 자와래 라마니엘라 소바다 셰란 너바 제나라 나메 수지 젠달래 주와 톤에 초도.
And the second of these 2 points, similarly saying here that when our teachers and so on are harmed, that patience is the only option for us in the situation like that. This is verse number 65 in the text, and it reads, I should prevent anger arising towards those who injure my spiritual masters, relatives, and friends. Instead, I should see, as in the manner shown before, that such things arise from conditions.
못들 다 된데 인베인도 가서 언제 랑게 지금 라마 인베다 년도 저거 좀다 소이네 딜 너바 정거도나 아니 너바 까 두고도나 아니 까도나 다 야보로 와 답시 여바이나 다 까에 답시 가야면 가서 지게결은 out of control이나 답시 가야면도 매바이나 어다 랑게 길어 용을 견다 지금 말이야 수고 다들 어디서 다 뭐유기 내줄라 딱 그거래서 뒤고서 규게 망부지 촌을 용을 대하면도 그 가사디 뇌께서 찔러 주고 줘야 요 말이서 규게 망부지 촌을 용을 요래서 되는서 란제 라마다 녀라 소바 사셔 소라 녀바 제바나라 초미리관이 대다게 사랑가만 나서서다 그 미지치게자 사랑가만 나서 미리베 레제베 추이다 레녀바든다 사요르바다 추이제 겐달레 중앙인 교 통네 And
so that here, what it's saying here is when our gurus, when our friends and relatives and so on are harmed, then what is our response? And first is that to prevent harm arising, as of course the first option and best. But of course, if the situation is out of our control and harm is definitely ensuing, then again, the same response, that anger is certainly not the way to go, cannot be the way to go. And that here, it's through looking into the fact that this situation is evolving on the basis of a bewildering variety of causes and conditions. And certainly, some of those conditions are the karmas that I have created in a previous lives to this, and that here this is now playing out, and so I have to take responsibility for that. And certainly, seeing that situation, I will see it is appropriate enough to stop anger arising and replace that with compassion.
그래도 다가제 되게 지금 라라이네다 셴라이네다 랑게 지 가사녀사다 술레진바이네 지 강에다 녀크다지 좋아한데 녀크다데 라완에 두바레 말이 제전 다루와 어디서 다제 제도 다가자 지 유대의 두바 두자메 바저 오쳐 바치네 다 유다 저 두자메 바도 그 메바르서 말에 가 유다데 아니 지 가서 다가자 지 가서데 규게 너 소바지 좀 말라 때네다 용되겠지 개왕님의 래 로다 아니 다가니 저게 가서데다 지금 제디게 다가자 아니 지금 내가 먹고 지라 때네 다 용되고 되게 그 먹고 소알 때네 아니 강에도 용되지 다 뭐 쳐야지 뭐 쳐야지 가서 어다 용되고 가사디 너밖에 없어서 가사디 개래면 뒤 잠을 두고 줘야면 도 되게 용해야 돼 수수 개왕님의 래 아니 근데 용해다 소소 대요래 너가 깨긴데 대요가 니 초발 때는 용 되거든 대한 개왕에 멜래 다 먹고 질러 손을 못 랑왕게 개자제 디레선 주조사데 매대로다
And so that here, of course, whether it's harm done to ourselves, harm done to our others, or problems that we have or others have, or trouble that we have or others have, it's kind of really saying that we must at all like as a first port of call, stop or really prevent the mental affliction arising. And that to understand that, it's very helpful to see that nothing can occur. There's no phenomena whatsoever that exists objectively, and that all phenomena lack any objective existence, even at the atomical level. And so that means that they must arise independence, and particularly independence upon the causes and conditions, and a bewildering array, in fact, of causes and conditions to give rise to whatever reality is occurring now. And so here it could be, the karma that we have accumulated in previous lives, for example, is now ripening and playing out. It could be the conditions that we find ourselves in this life. It's conditions related to myself, conditions related to the other, timing. So many conditions need to be taken into account, that there is not one thing that we can point to that is at fault for what's occurring. And this is a very important point, that we don't give ourselves just one point of focus, because that often centers on another due to mental affliction of blame and so on. So very, very important to recognize the bigger picture of what's occurring, and that that all of this is kind of adding to or contributing to what's going on, and therefore there's not any one thing that should be pointed to. This can be very helpful in preventing anger or blame and so on arising, and then allows opportunity for compassion to take place.
我觉得多，我觉得他等着因为因上，等着因为因上，或这个告诉了，究竟忙不起了创的让这个去，我他等着你把这块这我觉得多，但你把这我印度等着你把的用完了，究竟忙不起创的用过多，是吧
？And so, that is just like the situation that we are experiencing arises in dependence on a bewildering array of causes and conditions. The harm that is manifesting is the result of all those causes and conditions. That particular precise result of whatever causes and conditions are underpinning it, or under as its foundation. And so it's kind of like that's the explanation of exactly why what is occurring is occurring.
我觉得多，对，因为因上，我说他这个说的这个台湾一年的、东岸一年的，跟着金巴一年，地图跟着金巴一年，或这个究竟忙不起了创的用过的，安尼有一个说啥子这嘛多话一呢，安尼这不得了让我用不多，这不得了让我们多。但东岸一把一呢，东岸的有一个人我说啥子这嘛多话一呢，安尼这不东岸明白搞了，安尼靠这个靠这了，但他是买这个这里多。 但是他们买的大概的养学的是呢，这不得当着来些呢？我他来没这不的没这把的，这把去没啥话的，我他这个他说是啥呢？俺这边都娘叫他，我他的娘把的这说啥啥，俺那得来的呢，俺那他上了当心个呢，他一边嘛跟甚至他来年把啥把地过去吧凶，是不是？他上了当那基本上解决了的，马上真的判多么多，但东岸的那马上的感觉结果咱有搞了三个，他有点用处找把长沙说呢是我们多。 但人家用什么唱着，他去看的两学生当着来呢，我赢的没，当着来讲呢，哎，他看的结果上呢，第二天呢，吵架全部做下去的，他以为马个甚至他们来年把啥叫这个，哎，对他们在大人年底过去吧凶，是不是上了当大家睡的？
So this is the how we look on all happiness, all instances of happiness, all instances of suffering, no matter how brief, are only arising independent upon causes and conditions, a wide variety of causes and conditions. Therefore, in fact, our focus should be far more on the causes that we create, because once the result ripens, then it has no kind of control. It's already happening, and there's no kind of it has no independence. So the point of focus always is what causes am I creating here, and to be extremely careful around these kind of causes. So it's kind of like, and so if best is not to create the causes that might lead to suffering or harmful results. But if suffering and harmful results are already arising and ripening, and you're experiencing them, then the best attitude to take at that point is to accept what's going on and to not exacerbate that situation by turning it into a drama. And so you understand the principles of karma fall into place here, that we do not experience a result if we haven't created a cause. And if we have created a cause, it does not disappear of its own accord. And so this is very much in line, the suffering and the problems that I'm having are very much in line with the causes that I have created previously. And then from there, from that point of understanding of the context of why you're experiencing, this pain or this problem, and then you can start to say, okay, now I have this sense of acceptance of what's going on. There's no anger, but I can also understand what all other sentient beings might be going through, having created themselves negative causes. And so I take that on. You can do that as a practice. I take that on. May the results of their negative karma ripen on me, and to have that sense of a real sense of courage, and that so therefore, it's kind of like it's almost like a 3-point process here. You initially, best, don't create the cause. Avoid creating negative causes that will lead to suffering results. 2, if the suffering results are already ripening into problem and suffering, accept what's going on. 3, up the ante and really start taking it on fully and saying, I take on all of the suffering of all sentient beings who have created similar negative causes, that it may not ripen on them, but I may it ripen on me. And so you've turned that moment of potential disaster and negativity into something that's really meaningful as a practice.
That is meaningful. You tell a dig, and it's Masuba Kange the Mabachadua. Tanda Gozu Kange the Te, and a jig Kele Majaba de Kange Teba Chadigua. And go so Midone Kange the Yondig, and a dilet and a Kange Maba Chaya Tabla Kange that Teba Chadugua. Dilla Tango Le Shabayina, Tango Le Shana, and a Kange the Misuba Kange the Mabachasari. The Maba Chawala Tene, and go. 가서 샘도 구양 보차도 샘도 구양 보차도 아니 초 같이 보차에 내가 제도고도 하다 샘제 생게 동에 대단 예대 고쳐 봐서 삼사다 근데 잡아도 이제 거면다 망부지 제도고도 다 된대 이마 이자 되면은 미소바티게 아니 샘도 가서 카카샤도 고잡샤도 블록 제샤도 다디 원래 제샤도 아니 고체샤도 구양부 차주고도 아니 들라데네 아니 미게 남주 문에도 배주당 두고도 어디래도 어디 개변데 등바 만노와 제도에 개쳐 버리셔.
So it's worthwhile here to view the problem, the suffering, when it is in play, as a choice, that if I choose to see it as something unbearable, then that is going to exacerbate the problem itself. It's the problem is one thing. Now I, with my own mentality, have started adding on layers of difficulty and problem to it. And so you kind of go, is that a wise choice? Is that really helpful to me in the situation? The one is because it's absolutely impossible to avoid the undesirable occurring for us in this reality in life. The undesirable is always there. It's always occurring. And so every time it does, am I going to react in that way, the knee-jerk reaction of saying, I hate this, I don't want this, it's somebody's fault, and say, how wise or how helpful is that in your overall sense of well-being? Or you can say, I make the choice. I accept what's occurring here. All right. And so you have avoided this kind of like finding it unbearable. You kind of like have immediate in your genuine acceptance of this unfortunate suffering, the undesirable arising. You open the door to being able to really make this into something extraordinary, because you open the door to huge collections of positive merit, of being able to enhance your sense of love and compassion. And so you have, and not insignificantly, you have blocked or closed the door to mental affliction because of that. And so all of this is simply the correct use of your human intelligence. You kind of like, and so it's really important that you make the unmistaken choice in situations like that.
다 니발 잡아라 지민녀바 소바 소베에서 가발라 시샤 세미여 바실라 초아 미리베 중세 란지 녀바 삼바 소베 페요 삼바 워차.
So the next point, the second of those subheadings, was that putting a stop to anger through applying the patience of not replying to harm with harm. And this has 4 further subheadings. One is that anger is incorrect by the virtue of merely being sentient, right? Of merely being animate. And that secondly, the reasoning why anger is completely incorrect. Thirdly, reflecting on our own fault in that situation. And fourthly, reflecting on the benefits of patience.
당보들라 셈젠 남라 셈유 당 셈에 니게 뇌제나 셈유 지대 가다고 대외 뇌바서버 기죠.
And so the first of these points, it's simply on the basis of being sentient, anger is incorrect. Verse number 66. Since embodied creatures are injured by both animate beings and inanimate objects, I only bear malice to the animate. It follows that I should patiently accept all harm.
Semyedang, that sem you can that Gaza down, and it is Chunja so bad you done it. Nobody gets on that Chunja la so bears. That Chunja Roda Chunja la so bears at that Chunja in that Yana Yanga Java in Venet, that can't the legend nobody pajola, nobody Jorwa. Seme Niga Nobajava Tana, that nobody again, Chunja la so bad you then, Chunja again, nobody that. And down Sunja Beju the Gansa again, nobody Nobajava Tana Yena, and the Sunja de la Condosagu Yomara, nobody again the Gansa de la same Yugan de la Condosagu, Yona, Casa Tana, nobody Yona, Casa Semio Conala Chid and Migdes, the culture and Min, the never cheso, did the Lata, and the mental also what the Zula Condo Masawache. And the never chicken cansa de la canati, never cheso, and the Magawa cheddar, cate, go by me, Miribena, Della Neshala never silver. What the Kanjaji Corala Garden, and the castle the could never cheso, Dakaja, Mr. Chicago, did you me to Suya, Tati, did that, delay and it's about Congress.
So here it's saying that, for example, when our friends and relatives, those close to us and so on, are harmed, right? So they can be harmed by an enemy, the animate one, the one with mind, And they also can be harmed by the weapon that that enemy or whoever is holding, the inanimate. And so since harm occurs in relation to from both, why do we simply blame the animate, the enemy? And why don't we have harm towards resentment and anger towards the weapon itself? Saying by this kind of by this reasoning, we should avoid anger completely and supply advocate patience in each case.
다 단단히 가서는 지금 지난 녀바 개경을 가서도 지금 소바 공고에서 다디 가르치는 제 쓰기 요마다 다디 딜라 때는 콘도사나 지금은 도스 녀모게나 지금은 도스 좋아다 쇠스데 녀모 마게 봐 쇠바 쓰고 하면도 야데 가서도 지금 가르치는 제조 스트레이케자도 말해 가서도 남주 배주 따는 거죠 대화 되고 요래 동해 되고 매바 인자 다 소바 고마도나 거죠 동해 연구도 와 동해 다른 내가 동해 여와자 말에 모두는 동해 유튜브도 와 라시 니가 너바 지기도 와 왔다 들렸잖아 쓰고 요르면도 야 가서래 너바데 가르치네 제조선들이 그 소바케 지시기요 말에 소바 거미에데 라라 마녀바 라 순접 제체도 소바 검쓰기 요르바
So really, all of these verses are pointing to the same thing, saying here that whatever is the situation, anger is never the appropriate response, and that if there is an actual animus harmer, the enemy here, it's saying that that to give rise to the mental affliction and the anger, that is never good, never an option. That here, from using our basic intelligence, we know we want happiness, we know we want to avoid suffering, and therefore we know that if we have a lack of patience, if we find the situation unbearable and no patience in that situation, that is tantamount to creating suffering for ourselves. And so, and it's in fact, if we're reacting to another who is harming us, it's harmful to both of us. We're both creating the causes for suffering. And so it's kind of like really, it's saying that we are employing patience here in many ways, in many situations, as a protection for ourselves, a protection against the mental affliction, a protection against specifically anger.
我的，他的那因为人家，我的那这，我说这个，可是的3月了，看了3个多，2月的3月的春节你个6个多的，因为呀，假把拉说吧，春节拉说吧，10月的了，我就看了3个么多，看了3月的，第就跟个干啥的了，看了3个多啊，我的2月的几个6个多啊说的，6个几个人多啊说的，我的因的那因为人家他感觉，干啥可能干这，我就看了3个多，这边呢，年些了，6百了，说吧就，他的那因为啥，俺的那这个年几个6个多的，因为刚才可能了干成了，或者说第二这个们都是年些了6百了，俺都看着马上成了他，告诉的他就随便给。他随便再做吧，真的，说吧，光头吧，这个多少他，这说他你把创米里边种在你是他创米里拉拉蒙呗，你把钱拉拉蒙的出去呢，点了就没干几讲，讲的这的干些意思。
And so, so basically, this verse is saying, yes, you have that which harms the embodied enemy and the disembodied weapon. Now, both are responsible in a way for the harm that's occurring to you. But what and therefore you kind of say, who should you direct your anger towards? They say none is, neither one is a kind of a fully qualified receptacle of our anger, and therefore patience is the only choice in this regard. So whether harm is done to our friends and our relatives and those close to us, patience is the only choice that we should make. And we're going to really kind of, how do you say, really solidify that point in our minds. It's very, very important. Now, the next is, again, the second of those subheadings was the reasoning behind why anger is incorrect. And verse 67 reads, should one person ignorantly do wrong and another ignorantly become angry with him, who would be at fault and who would be without fault?
Kibulale and lende la mone and a sojobala sobe nebache, Rata, lende la monte and a chicasota, Penashabala soba, Nyabala soba, Yasimeta, Gata, lende la monte, Maobala social dinner, Mutin your egg, you to go the single yomatati, social panto yobachi, Nawachale, Tingala capsara to South Nawachachan, and Socheta. Chigiorva, Soche, Milako, Tamanda Chigiorva, Tati Bombe on the Chetigura. Habdu that Hatang Ragudu, Nalachi Yungudusan, Gazosa Yorda, in Momba Mariba on the Chetig Yorba. Chetig Yorba. In Judy, Shella Neva Chavati, Shella Neva Chavati, the Nelentita, the Chavatita, Jabuta Rala Mutuni Yontechi, that Chata, Yonta, Yunga, the single Yomara Mombe Onge. Mobe Socha so Nebachella, that Socha, what the Gogotan, what the kind of Yonti got a Mombe Onge. So the Chango Shuji in Jangu Yorda, in it, when it ran a so the Jago Mombe is Shamwa to Chine Yonti Yorba. That Lala Toya, Lala Condosane, Casa Nemila Monte, said the Rod Nemila Monte, and a Troy Juna, Nibutella, Gema Kanji Chatilla, Gema second shed to the Cha. Kongari get to us, Genda Chet, Kanshi, Niga Genjan to Tsumbiasa, Tsumbe, Nujela Toa Miriqua, Sheba Witch.
And so this verse is saying, taking two different individuals. And so one person who is confused or ignorant with regard to results, engages in faulty behavior like killing and so on. And of course, you know, there's all sorts of scenarios there that come to mind, whether somebody engages in killing for the sake of profit, or killing for the sake of sport, or for deception and so on. Either way, even though they might think they're, you know, very, very clever in what they do, they are ignorant. They're ignorant with regard to the results of their inaction, the inevitable results of their actions. And so they engage in faulty behavior like that. Now, there's another who, due to their own ignorance, their ignorance with regard to the faulty nature of anger, allow anger to arise, perhaps even in response to the former. Now, the question then arises, who is at fault and who is without fault? The answer is both are at fault, and both are quite similar in this having this fault. And so therefore, that reasoning shows that anger is completely the wrong response.
Repenanga Tredenda, so Tredella Nede, which was a mobile good Treden Garimba Hamawachan, social Nede Yungudua, Talis, and the Chanda, Dragstan. Then the Bejum, but the social digging of the social Kibu Yungudu Segura, Pena Tamata, Changrata, Takarimba, that didn't Mambuchi, social panto to Samsa Chegor, the Yene, digging Nede, Mobile Ongu Yontigua. Yontigua. Tagani Shigate, Penakuma Jayala Soba. Ramachin Lecheva, and Tagani Shig Scasoleta, Cache, Loim Chiela Soba, and Jun Shela Soba. Socially keeping eating Yorba. In a Mombe only keeping your money, John Yorte, in a keeping all my Shimba Chechen, and socially kept on Rasso, Tentil Yorba. Rata, or the Anichig. Go down the Jagzi shared out the letter. That you wrote that the Anichig. Red Duck and Danish Shella Chig cut down the letter with the letter. right? What that, and the Taganish to Yungu Takaja, and Taganish did it, and Caso, so the Changbu into the Chene, Lokta Drama like any day, your Tagas, right? Well, Kiao Machita rubbish lesson. Well, Tamji came by the Hash, your lesson. So, Chiorata, so much the Mumbai on the love together. We maybe couldn't care your money. And that Tamata Nashing Medusa, yeah, how good Medusa. So the Hamogo can't dare. So the Hamogo Junse and Yomaris shattered. Taco. You may have go man and sing Medusa and it's local. Ah, Yomaris cousin, yeah, go Medusa source. The lockdown was the language. But I didn't go. What in the younger Mumbai on younger. What in the young take it one? What in it?
So this sense of confused ignorance with regard to action relates to, for example, our health and the kind of decisions that we make that are harmful to our health, yet we might consider them as something positive, as something beneficial to us, such as our abuse of alcohol or drugs and so on. That people take these substances to feel happy and to think of them as something beneficial, but they are harmful to the body. People who engage in theft, stealing, they think that they're very smart in doing that, but it's an ultimate loss to themselves. Those engaging in sexual misconduct or lies or any kind of deceptive actions like that. It's all kind of thinking that they're engaging in such behavior to bring about something positive and beneficial or helpful to themselves. But in fact, it's counterproductive and counteractive. And so here, and then so in the same way, like people engaging in have a penchant for negative criticism or berating and so on. They get a kick out of doing that, but it's a very much reflects very negatively on them. And so those with wrong view who kind of dismiss the idea of past and future lives or omniscience and so on out of hand, to say it's a load of rubbish. That is kind of a very kind of silly, kind of an ignorant attitude that we're, instead of saying if we haven't been fully convinced of something, to say really I don't know one way or the other. That's the best attitude we can take, or the most, but rather than engaging in kind of these kind of more extreme attitudes and decisions that are negative in themselves, but we might think that there's something helpful to us.
That gonna, that the year taken the language of Condos and then a pengamara, Condos and the Rana Yomukigua. Today you take a Taka, today you can tell Mumbai or Gita, today Chigiores and the Ninja Kena, and Ryan Capsale to Gudua.
So that in summary, anger, any kind of anger, is of no benefit to us in regards to any situation, and that because it's feeding the mental affliction, and that patience is that which kind of like opens the door to compassion, which is always something which is beneficial to reflect on and for us to make part of our lives.
Because of the Kibu Delegida 200, oh, Tatita, Kibu Tujarisha, Makawa Chet, remember China, Ninja, Nomo wish I want to do it, and Momba Maribia Ongre, Ninja, and Momba knew to sell a show, so the subject Tamjaga Momba knew to sell a show, so the Jiggy Habela, Sheragel, and Jabayan so at the Veta, what in the Jan, Jabayan. Nangala Kone and Chick Tuzipaja Chen, Taiba Magasimja Tamjaki, Moba Mariba Seba shows, what the day Molom job, and Chizu Jamea Cheson shows, what the day Samlet in the Tanata, Kando Yungurwa, Tilia Magawa Tebale, Ninja, Konana Rawayama, Mombe Ongi Yorba. What in the
And so, for example, if you meet a person who either is engaging in very negative activity or has a very negative reputation, that's here again, to reflect in what way my reflection be beneficial in their regard. So because anger is certainly not on the cards, not on any choice, no choice here. But I reflect on the fact that unfortunately, they are engaging in negative ways of behaving. That gives rise to, I know what the results of negativities are, negative causes. That automatically kind of inspires a sense of compassion for me, and that and that compassion has to kind of be a precursor to some sort of action, positive action on our part. So that compassion thinks about the situation and how wonderful if they could be completely free of that ignorance with regard to their behavior. That they are not in control of what's going on. They are controlled by mental affliction. That what they need is clarity. What they need is to be able to see their good side and be able to make positive choices. And so and that may not just be for this person, but I want all sentient beings to eradicate that ignorance. And from that, you might visualize the actual deity of wisdom and Manjushri, and feel the nectar light coming from Manjushri as you reflect on that, and that going into all sentient beings, visualizing that as a protection against ignorance, and to be able to open the eye of wisdom for myself, this person, and all other sentient beings, is the best way to be able to greet that situation and be able to greet that person.
다 이내 양어서 강사 샹라 다도다 레라 ወ인다 소소라 다야 도스 강에라 소소레 소 칼로잖아 야나양도 제바제 야나양도 삼로타네 아니 지금 뭐뭐 머리베 샹완도 쳤네 레니 바사기면 도야서 야나양도 제바제 도나자 이제 뭐저 파통에다 레라 버리데 초통에 도스 카보도가 아니 초통에 야나양도 삼로다 아니 랑게 데데 지금은 도야 지금도 제바제 쳤네 아니 강도도게다 숙촌다 다야다 메바다 삼다
And of course, it's much easier to reflect on others in this way as it is to reflect on ourselves. And so we must pay special attention to kind of turning that kind of like analytical mode into examining what's going on within our own minds, to ask, am I engaging in negative karmas? Am I on the verge of engaging in negative karmas? What is going on in my own mindset? And to kind of really keep that process of analytical checking, to really keep yourself on an even keel, and to not allow the mind to move into being disturbed in any way.
직전에 뭐저 강사 시엔데 통한데 강사들도 유미 따야다. 그래서 디나이의 랑게 레고 온게 나한테고 여봐. 뭐저 시엔 강사가 교연 통해야지 강사들이 교연인다면 태좀을다. 그래서 랑게 레고 온게 나한테도 이내 다 가야내면 그 닝제다 잠바다 저와게다 시럽게게 구급도나 다 디게도나 야보르와. 다들 인사양 그 그게 교연도 교연들의 도세대 강사들이 교연의 인다면에 태솜을 해. 다 랑라 교연 요바데 랑게 ngocho 두고로 와. 라니를 고도 맞주 버려 와. 좋아. 당고서 시야라 두고서 야 도스 가버려. 랑게 레게 온게 난다 줘 봐.
So we must also bear in mind that the way in which we perceive others is totally dependent upon how they appear according to our karma. And we are limited by our own karma, because it's we see others. So whether they have the fault that we see or point out is doubtful. It's kind of like it's up there as to whether they have it really or not. What we can have more certainty about is our own faults, and when we are honest about ourselves, we can make a definitive assessment on our own faults. And so that's where the hard work needs to be done, and the majority of that work needs to be done. And similarly, if we understand the limitations of our judgment, because we are limited to our karmic appearance, what appears to us in the other person, nevertheless, that should not in any way prevent us from applying compassion, love, and wisdom in a situation like that. That's always a good choice. And of course, that is in always to avoid that kind of unfair critical mode or judgmental mode or anger towards them.
민자와지 용한테 그 강사대 순간 말와 이나 소소 레게 낭당에 소소 가고 있는 야구 통을 막아 있는 두자 통 되기도 와 어디 되는 용 되기도 와 연대 지마이네 그 연대의 교통 되기도 와 가마가 원게 다들 다들 쉬우쉬우 대개죠 맞다 이나 다 소소 지에다 딱딱해도 되면도 소소 거쳐고 와.
And so we know this from our own experience, isn't it? How we just say it's conditional is our own assessment of others, that we tend to view what is done by those that we like as good, what is done by those we dislike as bad, what is done by those to whom we are neutral or see as neutral is neither one way or the other. And that we're very kind of like almost predictable in that sense, and that we have to then view our opinions of others with some sort of skepticism. In fact, it's probably a good attitude, and then to be kind of less prone to and less quick to judge one way or the other. And therefore, what we can do is to do that self-analysis, that internal assessment as to how we are in our own minds, what we are, what's going on internally with us at all times, and to keep the focus on that is far more beneficial.
동에 교육 총대 매바 소도야 다 견소 데리다 견소 디인도 아니 디 다가자자 가서다 도나 되나 와서 니나 다 거두이네 아니 디 아니 가서 대외 줄을 줘도 것이다 동에 교육 총대 줘야 다 먼저 배세 제대로 가서 링게 차 되기도 와.
So as it says in the text, we are our own enemy, we are our own protector. And so this is referring to the fact that, we are our own protector when we are searching out the causes for happiness and going after them, accumulating those causes by engaging in virtuous activities. And similarly, we are a protector for ourselves when we are eradicating the causes of suffering, going after them, isolating them, and preventing them from being part of our behavior. And so it's kind of like whatever we are doing, just to keep those two objectives in mind. Cause of happiness, good. Cause of suffering, bad, get rid of it. And that this is where we should keep the emphasis. And in fact, if we are in any way spiritual being, this is our actual responsibility. Like I have said on previous occasions, that this is not the time to make use of or to enjoy results. That this is the time for accumulating causes. And therefore, it really behoves us to make sure they are unmistaken causes that we are laying down, causes for future happiness. So we have to kind of really take a scientific approach to this time, this season of causes, and to kind of make sure that we are being able to lay down unmistaken causes. So we kind of go, okay, what are the causes of suffering? Really to identify what they are and to make sure we abandon them. We kind of really dismiss those. What are the causes of happiness? To again search those out, to make ourselves well acquainted with what the causes of happiness are, and to establish those causes, to accumulate those causes. That's what we need to do.
Tanda digi yongudo mondo samlo madacha tanda digi YouTube gudo mondo samlo tana tanda digi YouTube gudo mondo samlo tawa yimba yina ane ko jude mano astuto gura tanda digi samlo tan dewa ane digi yongu mare tunga yon digre.
And so now is kind of not the time to emphasize the experience of happiness. Now is the time to lay down the causes of happiness. That's where the focus should be. And if we are thinking about that, we are more likely to lay down unmistaken causes for that happiness. Whereas if we just want happiness here and now and always, then we're likely to suffer.
다들 이마서 어쩌다 디기 귤라 삼로탄 제바이나 서바 검토그레 잠바 검토그레 가서 수림 송토그레 수리 좀 토그레 뭐다 다 단단해 디기 삼로탄 안디가 좀 토고 말이다. 가서 디기 세게데 디게데 수림 서바 삼데 디게데 원도 좋아라 되네 아니 디기 아니 천지 상황 중앙 되게 여러 봐. 다 단단히 가서 유튜브에 뒤에서 주가르샤 세전에 치바이나 아니 ene digi gege ane kaso de kondo da shedan da dosha la soba dige de gege yiba ngoto de ane dige de kanto de kapte jaya samlo le tukurwa.
And so we know that the causes of happiness are the practices of patience, of ethical conduct, of generosity, of enthusiastic effort, etc. These will lay down the causes of fully qualified happiness. That's what we want. We just don't want that short term. We want fully qualified happiness long term. And also, we know what to avoid because we know that anger and attachment and hatred and so on are the obstacles to happiness. And we need to avoid those kinds of behaviors.
어다 들어서 들어 삼로탄데 아니 디기 생인데 거 라와 요말 디가서 주차장 소소나 아니 디기데 제보데 라와 요말에 주차장 소소나 동에데 라와 요말에 거 용거래 다데네 임바 이제 동에다 주생인데 동에다 디기 생인데 거 줄라데네 거 요바자 다 머데와데 주가리아 세जना 방타데 되데 주가리아 세저답 제바이나 줍답 제바이나 아니 가서 제바이나 다 아니 가서를 딱 같이 저기 가서데 강해시다 매배 돈에 아니 가서데 렐라보 돈에 아니 줍투에 지용으로 와 렐라보 돈에 줍투 고 가서 뭐유게 내줘 투마로 와 뭐유게 내줘 투마 있는 걸 시다 렐라데 다 어저 다도 뭐유게 내줘도 미티베도데 아니 고 깔래 가보 차바로 와
And so therefore this is the time for establishing the causes of this happiness, this fully qualified, more permanent sense of happiness and well-being. And that, this is what we want. Therefore, to go after what we want and to make sure that we recognize what we don't want and to go after that and abandon the causes of that. And so it's kind of like that which is in accordance with reality. So when we're moving in accordance with reality, things become easier and easier, more amenable for us. And that this is the important. So problems become easier, difficulties become easier because we're moving in accordance with reality. And so then to you
말에 모두 주가리 고고도 주비에 삼로 마땅하체 아니 제보들 삼로 제보들 단다 영야 삼로 단나 되는 거 강에 찾아 가서나 디기를 차사로 와 디기를 차자도 되는 깔래 잡두고 말와
So that's unfortunately this is the modern scenario is that we don't reflect on the causes that need to be laid down for happiness, but rather we want happiness to occur for us at all times, and that means we meet with problems so often and are overcome by these problems again and again. And so kind of making the unmistaken, we're making mistaken choices really.
There's a because a gula judiga dimba hako and gula peson and judilla try kigger try kid and because of the servata to get there and because of lelabu on the troop to a jungurwa. That was a table digi de la chata and a negative digi de Ponyamdo Leangure. That dim about the Jukoral Jeonte and because of the digi gets I you did do on it and nega with digi that because a side effect and young diggerwa.
So that the reason for this is that we have an attachment to happiness, and so this kind of really a strong attachment to happiness is kind of like it so easily pinches the mind into suffering because we don't get it. It doesn't happen for us because why? We haven't focused on creating the causes for that happiness. So the cause of that happiness being, the patience, the love, the compassion, and so on that has been mentioned. And that the beautiful thing about that is, on the one hand, when we focus on that consistently, persistently, it becomes easier to bring up these behaviors constantly. And likewise, that we do actually experience happiness at that time as a kind of a side effect. Because we're really allowing the mind to experience its own sense of well-being.
What are the less jet to buy na? Church to see the Nomola Cabde Chai the Redwa. Nomola Cabde Chai the Dutch to order, Wakasan was don't the Nomola Teniongo Yovaza, and don't buy and a digi to be a dealer that church Yorba. Church Yorba.
So when you talk about engaging in spiritual practice, what is at the heart of it is the avoiding of mental affliction, the opposing to mental affliction arising. And so here, because this is in the service of, on the one hand, abandoning suffering and overcoming suffering, and establishing, on the other hand, happiness, genuine happiness.
What are the rest of my go in a church to do your that church where the Gom Jaya Soras down and because of the Toloya down, the country chair that the Kalachiban was a Duzu Maraba Chigre. That the member Nomola Kapta Chaya Kalachiban go in a church to your cook of your.
And so, and with having said that, you can see that there is no limit on when we can engage in such spiritual practice. It's available to us at all times. It's not limited to whether we are meditating or whether we are reciting sutras or any other kind of formal practice. That is, in fact, how we are able to, intelligently deal with all of that which occurs to us in life.
Codu in a Duzu Casana Rang Luda da Cobatona, send the Yamdo Langdor, and send the Yamdo Leon, send the Codu in a and the Nyomong and a kid the keg to game with the Jaracha Kebaina and a keg that goes on to any declaration on the Nyomong Kata Janda, Codu in a quite because of the Jetwitcher and good what Jebaina, not Jebaina.
And so, like this is obvious because wherever we are physically, there we are mentally as well. The mind goes along with the body. And so if the mind is in that mode of kind of doing an internal assessment, examining whether or not mental affliction is arising, it's a very, very, very important and very, very beneficial practice to engage in and to be able to take, necessary action if it is in danger of falling under the influence of mental affliction, or if it needs encouragement to then take the kind of bring a positive thinking to the fore and to fulfill a positive action on the basis of that. And this is the process of spiritual practice.
Yeah. Okay.
And we leave it there for today.
Yeah, that can get Rang doing doing Naga Lama to be on the set or the Yanjo set up your shop.
And so reflect again on the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha in the space in front.
아니 저 라마 투베 온보다 나라라 심be 가지고 공부시 어떻게
And that the Buddha in front is does not exist in the way in which he appears.
어떻게 다 되네 저 감성 좋아리도 가밖에 봐이네 아니 거기서 가밖에 봐이네 다 동해를 맞대 봐지 공부시네 다 동해 주가 다 잡아 두제 그 동해를 맞대 봐지 차대 잡아 두제 그 동해도 빵마도 봐이나 아니 주에 동해다 동해니도 용대지래 다 되네 이마 인사 더 공부시네 왔다 아니 코알링 예바 줘 연중지 공부시 아니 되네 예바 줘 연중 예바 로데 아니 랑게 지볼라 아니 가서데 이게 밤때 빼마다 맞게 맞을 주소 삼성 공부시.
And so we're reflecting on all of the three realms of existence, and also reflecting on the three levels of suffering that are experienced within what is known as samsara in these three realms of existence. How we have the suffering, the suffering of change, and most especially pervasive suffering, and how pervasive suffering induces the former two, and how they arise on the basis of pervasive suffering, and how once we're in this cyclic existence, there's no avoidance of such suffering, and therefore we develop this sense of the definite emergence to attain liberation from cyclic existence, known as renunciation. And that is symbolized by the lotus mandala seat on our crown.
What 지난 그 초근대 지휘바의 유대의 주바도 두산 요마레 공부시 개발도 다디 공부시나 심제 탐제도 산제 공부 주근에서 나디 가봐도 제죠 아니 나 많이 받아가는 걸 셈샤.
And so that we reflect also how all inner and outer phenomena lack any objective existence. We reflect also in terms of our self, like where is that self that we have such a strong connection to. We're looking inside the body and mind to see how that self is supposed to appear, and arriving at the point of the mere negation of that object of negation.
What the gacha gazamti samlo semto shachen and the nege niebe gacha gazang niebe tender loti and the caso de nimaking with Yakawachi and the payment of the Neso subsacha. That the day in by Yinzang, you didn't do a meba in that time to Tante, then the Juma to Josam in Dua. Then the Juma in Bayina, oh, that Sanjay Komaso, then the you chose a yes. 다들 여바이나 다 산제고 마존 타면도 주바지긴 스타일 마그 심제 탐제 되 마존 타면도 주바지긴 왔다 좀제 통해 돈에 왔다 공부시했잖아 아니 되네 와서데 왔는데 제 심제 탐제도 산제 아니 공부 주바지긴 삼자게 아니 되게 주바지 공부시 아니 되게 주바데 님에 때도 아니 다외지 뭐 약하고 주소 삼사자.
And so that's that then mere negation of the object of negation, that not finding of the object of negation, is the like mind of the wisdom element, and that is symbolized by the sun mandala disc on our crown. And then because of that not finding of a kind of an objectively existent sense of self, we understand that that self does not exist in that way, but it's not non-existent. It does exist. It exists in independence. It is a dependent origination, or a dependent rising independence on causes and conditions, for example. This then allows for the notion of omniscience, the state of enlightenment, to be possible, because if one lays down the causes, they will. The result is inevitable. It has to appear if the causes are created, and so this leads us then to really firm our motivation to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, the mind of enlightenment, or bodhicitta, and that is symbolized by the moon mandala disc on our crown.
어제 내가 반대서 라마를 뭐지 다게 지워 빼면서 가지고 구수도 정도로 다 등긴 난가라 세트에 라마 투베 온 버텔 미는 반대서 라마 다게 지워 가는 구수도 연구를 해서 선대전에 선대 담배 가서 마저 니베 가서 슈 수베 가서 때르신 산제 고마마도 제 송수 어다 야고 시부 쳐서 라마 투베 온 산제 고마마도 제 송 가고 안델 야라도 면대다 잡아 피 어들지
So then we utter the invocation verse thrice. So glorious and precious Lord Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure moves from the space in front where we have visualized and comes towards our crown. At the end of the second recitation, the figure has arrived and seated at our crown, and facing in the same direction as we are. And at the end of the third recitation, we have the certainty that the Buddha will remain until we attain enlightenment. And we rejoice at that wonderful eventuality.
어들지 다들 양조 공부 시켰잖아요. 가서도 저가서도 감소 좋아지고 가봐게 보는데 아니 동네에 맞대버져 들링이 봐줘 연주 공부시 아니 들링이 별로데 라닝데 빼마다 제대로 주소 섭사자 아니 되네 와다 된데 심지어 탐정가 산재 공부 두고에서 나한테 가봐도 양조 제바지잖아. 아니 제바잖아 와다 다 많이 봐 가자 가서는 어떤지 공부시 아니 되네 된댕게 가서데 네베 로디 아니 니메 좀 냥가 가지고네 아니 빼마다마게 간 내소 섭서 되네 심지어 탐정가도 산재 공부 요원이도 뭐다 탐는 요원이도 두고 인사서 공부시 디다외 좀 냥가 가지고네 아니 니메도 내소 빠져자벨라 말도 다 니가 빼면서 그래 구수도 정도로 짜도 소대 잡을던 담배 가서 패 니베 가서 수배 때도 산재 공부마도 받을 제 순수 섭서 공부시 되네 빼마다마게도 마이너스 카츠는 남진인데 내가 도지가 못상가서 가지 디 타고도 또배청아 다도 뭐는 뭐서 다도 뭐는 되는 무슨 거 거기 공부시 되네 지수 잠에가서 알아봐서 나디디디디디디스 되는 무슨 거기 되네 되네가서 예다마 해도는 마 샤만하지 소한테는 무슨 거 거기 어디는지 공부시.
So again, we reflect on the creating an appropriate seat at our heart center to invite the Guru Buddha there. Again, reflecting on renunciation, how all of the realms of cyclic existence are in the nature of suffering. As long as we're there, we cannot get beyond that suffering. Therefore, I developed the mind of renunciation, the mind of definite emergence, which is symbolized by the lotus mandala seat. And from that, then I have this sense of self, the self that wants to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, for example. Where is that self? Examining internally into the mind and body and not finding it or reaching that point of the mere negation of the object of negation is symbolized again by the sun mandala disc. And then that wishing to quickly attain the state of enlightenment, mind of enlightenment itself is symbolized by the moon mandala disc. Again, the invocation verse thrice, O glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seed placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure on our crown now moves down through the crown chakra into the central channel. At the end of the second, they have arrived at our pre-prepared seat at the heart. And at the end of the third, we have again that certainty that they will remain with us until we attain the state of enlightenment. This is really wonderful, and we rejoice in that. Just as the petals of the lotus fold over and are joined at their tips by a white 5-pronged Vajra, and then surrounded by 3 mantras: the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination again in a clockwise direction.
어든지 다들 랑이 닝이 우서 라마 두베 오면 내가 때 구송 돌에 왜서 빠도 마버라 랑이 지원에 간디가 발라 왜서 저 류기 나한테 배 왜서기 참네 아니 토마메 버디 버디 켜봐도야 아니 가서래 这个米给主部这最终的给完了说白，大概当这边看那么多，让些看那么多，你把跟着3万1万呢，把当时大块中数上这这，大概你就说特别多嘛的，这就是什么老把这个怕到马拉马古把的就不是，主要这么多了土里特别就是你把跟着少了，菜地菜俺嘛地俺嘛地，他妈没有是地瓜的这个这，哎，上是大块中数上这，好多多的，这个告诉了。这个确准备给钱切切的，那如果拿着手的确准备给钱用过多，确他就把这么多用过多。大概你这生个东西呢，你用过多，那就嘛。大概你现在，你这个告诉的扎龙体内卷差不多有吧？那样，多把开发些干嘛多在用过多。他的那因为是的那卷个的卷，他在讲起大呢。这个我说话中数上去。好多的牛头三界恐怕拖了给切切的，他们个那些的么意思？他们那些卷他们就当呢，看那他就大把人家把些插头也不修中数上去。
And then from within the lotus petals, light starts to emanate from the heart center of the Buddha within, and then permeating our entire body, every cell of the body, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet. Our whole body transforms into a body of light. And this is a very powerful, purifying light, which purifies all the negativities and obscurations we've accumulated since beginningless time, including the negativities associated with the 10 non-virtues, negativities associated with the naturally occurring negativities and all those actions proscribed by the Buddha, negativities showing any disrespect from parents upwards to our spiritual teachers, negativities that have occurred in this life, and the one previous to this, and the one previous to that, going back to beginningless time, any infractions and downfalls related to Pratimoksha vows and Bodhisattva vows and Tantric vows, and all negativities that might interfere with our spiritual practice, particularly those causing, illness and discomfort in the body and suffering of the mind, that these are completely and utterly purified along with their imprints, that all of the elements, the channels, winds and drops within the subtle body are completely rebalanced and rendered pliable for our practice, that all of these negativities and obscurations and obstacles to our being able to engage in perfect practice are completely purified and rectified. And particularly the biggest obstacle to our being able to quickly attain enlightenment, being ordinary perception, is completely transformed into pure perception.
所以是的，这路的这个讲，那么下家生个过的连接这个讲，所以的那么下家生个过了就说是不是？所以是的，这生的年来讲，那么下家生个土的连接这个讲，所以生的那么下家生个土了就说是不是？让给龙啊一说的那么下家生个过程中我也没就说上去，第电话东北的电动你说一些结束上去，让给那三个那点那个叫他家天的，那么下家生个大概是的就说上着公巴讲。
And through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of a Buddha. I see my body, speech, and mind now as inseparable from that of the Buddha, of the enlightened being. And that this induces a sense of bliss which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. The place that I'm in also is completely purified of all degeneration and fault and becomes the palatial abode of an enlightened being.
当然，那么现在下家是个，古初的我也没觉得，对嘞， the and Nala Rashim about Komashi, Nala Rashim about tea, Tugale, Lama Shajasik, Nala Rashim, Lama Shajasik, Simjang and Tadin about part 20. And Nala Rashim about Simja, Deda Tanjala, Lama Shajasik, Chasawa, Shuala Tena, Deda Tanjaya, and Kijig Lama Shajasik, Kusuto, or Yemaju subject. Deda Nesa Neta, George took a net, Deda Tanjaya. Lama Shajasik, Tabish of the Jusu, sons of Oho, comes on. Koa together, Takaja, Injicalabason, and Jesus, and Koaka Ton, Kanga and Lama Shajas Komala Kuton, Yakushu, Simjatam Lama Shajas Komala Kogi is that you might didn't go to some Kawa Comne.
And so then, seeing myself as inseparable from a fully enlightened being, also seeing myself as lacking any inherent existence, I send out light rays from my own heart center, equal in number to all the sentient beings in all the realms of existence. And seeing all sentient beings also as lacking any inherent existence. All of the light rays entering into them, and in the same moment, they arise as fully enlightened Buddhas. The places that they are in also are purified of all degeneration and fault, and they are transformed into the palatial abodes of enlightened beings. And this is wonderful. I've been able to bring an end to and empty all of the realms of cyclic existence, fulfilling this major purpose. How wonderful today is the day I've been able to do this. I rejoice in being able to do this.
What in the shot, Takaja, Simja Tamja Lama Sanjas Shajas and Sala Goba, teacher the Suzy Gawaka, they to go so you did the Madro, Toba Pata Tamres, a tea tong, tea Dewa ding ever lotic Tomba, they don't use me, she gets so Kumacha.
And so, reflecting on the fact of leading all sentient beings to this state of enlightenment, the virtue that has facilitated this, and myself as the agent of that virtue, all are completely empty of any objective existence and are merely imputed by thought. This in self brings forth a sense of bliss which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
What in the combat teacher? Tata to Meba is a Muna Coratinda Lela, which you married the Yinaya, didn't there's some town and shingy. Ta Muna Cora didn't much of a tub never. Today in Bayinza, what are the Neki, what are the troop to Bachigi, stand troop to Walla, Sanja Komatu, Ransanja Komatobala, the Kachigu to Sana, Tony Niji Buja Lam Jula Kiko, the Chanju Sem Kiko. Janju Sem Janata, Karnam, Tony Niji Buja Lam Yamnachigu. That the name by that Nima Dirina Gotsu Jen, Sana, Tona, Dena, Takaja, because of the Takaza Niana Karim by Inaya, what I Chicaso Tony Niji Buja Lam Kula Quebec and Twingela Draw. Chicken, Samsa Chen, what Takaja Chicaso there, Tiki Junata, Tunga Junata, Kaba Kaime. The Lingate, Tony Niji Nibuja Lam Kula Quebec, Twingela Draw to a chicken, Samsa, and it's because of the that Nasa Chua in by Nata. That Kiranachi condition, Tama Chua in a Chiwati, Tony Nibu Chicken Lam Kula Quebec, Twingela Draw to a chickens, Chetua shows, water, Chetu then, Lamatuba with Jingle Lab to source, water the commercial.
And so therefore, this is the way I kind of really need to set my thinking to attain this state of enlightenment. And to know that to attain that state of enlightenment, as we stated, one has to lay down the causes for that, which center on the cultivation of the doctrine of emptiness combined with the mind of enlightenment. To be able to develop that mind of enlightenment, I need to really to nourish my compassion and love, etc. And so that I will use whatever situation I'm in, whenever, to be able to see all conditions as conditions for the increase of compassion, an increase of my understanding of emptiness, and the development of the mind of enlightenment. And that here, whatever occurs, happiness or sadness, it's going to be simply a condition for my being able to allow my compassion, my love, my sense, my understanding of emptiness to increase and flourish. And that means even when I'm sick, even at the point of death, it makes no difference. I'm simply using all of those conditions to increase a sense of love and compassion and understanding of emptiness. And oh, Guru Deity, please bless me to be able to make this so.
我的恐怕写，他的恐怕写吧，因为俺那俺这个去千年结巴的，去个这个老中结巴当，俺那去年巴当，他搞的结巴因呢，去了老中结巴年巴搞的结巴因呢，俺他过去吧中了吧，那可他过去吧吃吧，他我他等着真的，他可就我等着这个三路的，俺那只有蛮娘吧真的，可对于呢三路的来吧真的，
So that really makes useful and meaningful. All of our study of the Dharma, all of our listening to the Dharma, that if we can use every moment like that to augment our compassion, our love, our understanding of wisdom and compassion, wisdom and emptiness, that this is what it really means. May this be the case for us.
等着结巴呢，他南中我就老中结，俺那三节个原的讲究18出个，俺那这个萨拉姆个原的人巴晓得是吧？他是这个人巴当，俺那大概那些个这错浪脚浪拖浪过来了说吧，等着大概那些杀猪了说吧，等这个俺那三节个三原的这个个哦，他人不嘛到话让就来，俺那给退有个在给个居住个就差个多，这边呢，他说的俺那做忙不就老中结的，俺这个。想把个加拉进，我就整个这说了吃个的吧。他等这个有这个原来的让就来给有吧去，让就来等这原来的中途吧接到他，你搞的了现在做过多。
So we must never lose sight of the fact, the objective that when we are studying the Dharma, when we are listening to the Dharma, it's for the purpose of our being able to proceed along that path to enlightenment, to proceed along what are known as the paths and grounds, the 10 Bodhisattva grounds, the 5 paths of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. And that every aspect, every moment of our practice should lead to that, to kind of understand that this information is not like some sort of commercial enterprise that we are engaging in terms of obtaining some material object. Here we are looking into establishing all of the emulating what the Buddha has done in our own mind stream, of really laying down the causes in our own mind stream to proceed along these paths and grounds.
我老说，给我的有问的老马三节多多我接大马了吧。Deya salai go barai chan bo jai ma panam ke yoroi jai ke pa nya me ba Gone go power show Donya Tawa Boy my Panama Yoroi Gilby Boy Gone gone Power show Gania Rave Kove Shingamanda the one Malu Joanne Cheres Etienne Yazo Ye Shabe City Bado de Yoroi Meo Oh boy, be yang ga je je be zu je song ba lo zan da ja lo so wan de
me
Lo zan da be xiao lai so wan de miao miao jiao Lo san da be ya la so de.
You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion, not aimed at true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception, Samkapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snows, Losam Drakpa, at your feet and make requests.
That's what. No, thank you. Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Everyone.